Welcome to this video module where we will look at standardized scores and how you can use them within your school. In particular, we'll look at using these scores to measure the progress of your students, both in terms of comparing scores between different assessments, as well as comparisons over time to measure progress. You will no doubt be using a method of measuring your students' performance within school. So I'd like to take a moment to explain what we at GL think are the most important considerations for an assessment system. The first thing to say is that we are very strong advocates of teacher-led assessment in the classroom. You know your students individually. You will have an idea of what you think they're likely to achieve, and you will be monitoring their progress to ensure that they meet the targets that you set them. However, it is very important that alongside the teacher-led assessment, you use some form of external measurement to ensure that your own assessment is accurate, as well as being fair and transparent. You could rely on the external examination system, but the frequency of this can be long, and in most cases, by the time you receive the information, it will be too late to rectify any shortcomings. So I hope you'll agree that a combination of teacher assessment together with external assessment measuring both attainment and progress would seem to be a very good idea. Recently, the National Association of Head Teachers Commission on Assessment published its report, and some of its findings are on the screen here. You can see that they emphasize the importance of backing up your own measurement by using an external system of measurement, and in particular one that is nationally standardized. Let me try to put this into context. You may have a pupil in your class who you know is bright and who does very well in the tests and assessments that you employ within the school. But how do you know how clever he or she is when compared with others nationally? It is only by using an external standardized scoring system that you can establish just how bright he or she is in comparison with his or her peers nationally. So what is our standardized or norm-referenced measurement, and how does it work? Its purpose is to provide you with an external, reliable, and transparent measurement that compares each student with their peers nationally and provides you with that data in a simple form. What's more, if you use standardized data across more than one assessment and repeat the process over time, not only do you get an accurate measurement of each pupil's attainment, but you also get an accurate measurement of their progress. To put this into perspective with other types of assessment, standard age scores provide you with normative data. You and your colleagues collect formative data from the classroom through the everyday teaching and teacher-led assessment that is ongoing. And finally, the use of standardized data year on year to track and monitor progress provides you with summative data. Here's another view of how standard age scores will help you as you use the assessments that make up your complete digital solution. Both attainment and ability assessments use standard age scores, which means that you can make meaningful comparisons between the assessments to see if there are discrepancies anywhere. Our attitudinal survey, PASS, uses percentile ranking, as do the other assessments, so again, valuable conclusions can be drawn from comparisons here. In fact, all this, combined with your own knowledge and assessment of your pupils, will help to provide you with a clear picture for each individual and group within your school. Okay, let's have a look at the different standardized scores that we use. The curved shape that looks like a hill is a standard distribution curve, sometimes known as a bell curve because of its shape. In any data collection, it is normal for the majority to be in the middle, with increasingly smaller numbers as we approach either end, hence the curve. This curve is subdivided into 9 stanines or stanines, which are standard 9s. What this means is that we have divided the curve into 9 equal parts, 1 to 9. Above the stanine numbers, you can see the percentage of the population, or data set, that falls into each stanine. This also shows you that the majority are in or near the middle, and it is usual for stanines 4, 5 and 6 to be referred to as average. In fact, the middle of stanine 5 is exactly the average. So stanines give you a quick guide as to where a pupil is in terms of comparison with their peers nationally. PR is the percentile ranking, sometimes called national percentile ranking. This indicates the percentage of the population that have scored lower, and in this case, a national percentile ranking of 50 puts a pupil right in the middle. They are doing better than 50% of their peers, but it is also true to say not as well as 50% of their peers. A percentile ranking of 85 would put the pupil above 85% of their peers, but below 15, and this tallies with their position in stanine 7. Standard Age Score, or SAS, is the next one. Here, the score that a pupil gets in an assessment is correlated with their actual age and then compared with their peers nationally. In this case, 100 is the average, although in order to allow for a 90% confidence band, we usually say that a standard age score lying between 90 to 110 is average. To be precise, it's 88 to 112, which represents 68% of the population. So how do we arrive at the standard scores? Before an assessment is launched, we trial it with as many schools and students as possible, following DFE guidelines on stratification to ensure that the schools we use provide a true and fair representation of schools across the UK in terms of large, small, rural, inner city, state-maintained or independent, etc. In some cases, we have taken this further to measure specific parts of the UK, such as Northern Ireland. The results from these trials are gathered, and a number of the assessments are rerun to ensure that the results are valid. The data is then age-adjusted to ensure that we are accounting for where in the academic year a pupil's birthday lies. One further point whilst we're on this slide. I mentioned that the average standard age score is 100. When it comes to measuring progress, you need to remember that standard age scores are corrected to the pupil's ages, and so this means that if a pupil has a standard age score of 100, their attainment is average. If the following year their standard age score is again 100, then this means that the new standard age score has been correlated with their age again, and over the year they have made average progress. If their score in the second year is, for example, 120, then they have made above average progress over the course of the year. If, on the other hand, their score in the second year is 75, then they have made below average progress over the year. Let's take a look at how these standardized scores are shown in your reports. We're looking at a Progress Test English group report. Down the left are the names of the students, and next to that are their actual ages, in years and months. Now we have the number for their standard age score, followed by a graphic representation of where their score sits. The orange band down the middle shows the average area. For each student, the vertical line shows their actual score, and the horizontal line crossing it shows our 90% confidence banding. This means that we are confident that if a student retook the same assessment again, their score would lie somewhere on that horizontal line. The vertical line isn't always in the middle of the horizontal line, because the higher the score, the more likely it is that if retested, their score would be similar, but probably lower. The same applies at the low end, where the likelihood is that the score on a retest would be higher rather than lower. I'm not going to deal with the Lexile score here, but next to this you can see the Steinine shown as well as the national percentile rank. This group has been sorted into group order based on their standard age scores, which is why the standard age score lines in the middle start at the right hand at the top and move progressively to the left as we go down the list. By the way, if you would like more information specifically on progress test reports and how to analyze them, please have a look at our separate video module on that. Now here's a sample report from the new group reading test. Again, this shows standard age scores, national percentile ranking, and Steinine scores. As with the previous slide, if you'd like more on new group reading test reports, please have a look at the video module for this. Finally, let's look at a Cat 4 report. In this case, you are provided with a standard age score for each of the 4 batteries, as well as a mean standard age score from all 4. It is worth making sure that when you look at these scores, you do have a look to see if there are any highs and lows within the 4 batteries, as these might be levelled out in the mean score. This slide illustrates that last point. It is an individual pupil's report, and you can see that in this case the mean standard age score of 113 masks the fact that although the spatial and non-verbal scores are high, the verbal score in particular is much lower. So do look at the score for each battery. Okay, I hope all this is making sense for you. So now let's have a look at how you can use standard age scores in combination reports. There is a separate video module dealing with combination reports in detail, so I'm just going to look very briefly at the use of standard age scores here. If you take the standard age score for attainment for a particular pupil and then compare this with the standard age score for their Cat 4 assessment, you will very quickly be able to see whether or not they are performing at a level that their ability assessment would indicate. If there is a discrepancy, then you will want to investigate why this might be to see if there are any barriers to learning that may be the cause of the discrepancy, and from that take decisions on what intervention strategy to use to try to remove the barriers. On this slide, you will see that we are combining the data from 3 assessments: Cat 4, New Group Reading Test, and Progress Test Maths. On the left, we are comparing the Cat 4 verbal standard age score with New Group Reading Test, and the result is briefly described in terms of the pupil's reading discrepancy. Next, we compare the Cat 4 quantitative standard age score with the Progress Test Maths score, and again a Maths discrepancy category is provided. Note, the other 2 Cat 4 scores for non-verbal and spatial are also provided for completeness. Here's another example from the report, this time making a comparison between the group's mean standard age score and the national average, allowing the school to see how it compares with similar schools nationally. This is a more graphical representation of the group's data, and it shows whether a pupil's reading attainment is higher or lower than expected by comparing Cat 4 verbal and New Group Reading Test standard age scores. In this case, it also shows boys' and girls' scores separately for further analysis. Here we are looking at the comparison between the Cat 4 quantitative standard age score and the equivalent from Progress in Maths. The line in the background is the national average, and the bars show the percentage of students in each band. Standard age scores not only provide you with an accurate assessment of each pupil's current assessment, when they are compared year on year, you can measure progress and have factual data to back this up. Here's an example of a progress report from New Group Reading Test. For each student, we have their age at the 2 New Group Reading Test assessments, followed by their standard age score for each assessment, and then the difference between these scores, shown as a plus or minus number. These numbers are further categorized as either above average, average, or below average. Again, you are provided with a Standardised score together with each pupil's national percentile ranking. Very quickly, you can see exactly what progress each pupil is making, and then on the basis of this, you can start to decide if intervention is required, and if so, what strategy to use. Again, you have valid standardized data to back up your findings and subsequent decisions. I hope that now you can see the use in making comparisons between each student's current attainment, their ability, and the barriers that may be holding them back. And by using standardized scoring, you have accurate data from which to track and monitor progress, as well as make informed decisions. Thank you.